So here's the thing. If you're an entrepreneur who constantly feels like you never have enough time to do the things you actually need to do, right? Like if you feel like you've become the bottleneck in your company, today's piece should hopefully help. And this is actually more of like a case study than like a typical like think piece where I go over like mental models and concepts and stuff. This is what I actually helped a coach a client do. So I work with this tech founder who constantly felt overwhelmed in his business, which had actually caused growth to stall, which is, as you know, a death knell in entrepreneurship. And his biggest problem, he said, was I'm just so busy all day, every day. I don't have enough time to actually grow my business because so many things require me to be the final decision maker. It's an all too common trap many entrepreneurs fall into with their businesses. And maybe you're struggling with that right now. And there are tons of complicated matrices and models that could probably help you with this, but I just prefer a way more straightforward approach. So I'm a big fan of learning to figure out what are the fewest questions I can ask that will give me the maximum amount of clarity. So here are 3 questions I use to help an entrepreneur save 15 hours every single week. Question number 1. So they assumed that they had to be the final decision maker. The first question I asked was, how accurate is this assumption that you have to be the final decision maker in all of these questions and decisions? He actually realized he was operating off of dozens of false assumptions, which had led him to believe that every single decision in his company had to go through him. This is especially common for like scrappy founders whose superpowers of being the operator and doing everything themselves actually is what helped them start their company in the first place. But this superpower quickly turns into kryptonite when it comes to scaling your company, because the very work ethic and tenacity that got you to this point becomes the bottleneck that prevents you from growing much more. So we identified and untangled a lot of these false assumptions to start the process of helping him remove himself as the bottleneck in his company. Question number 2. What specific questions are people asking? What specific decisions are you actually having to make on a day-to-day basis? So to get an inventory of all these questions, it was super simple. He created a dedicated Slack channel that everyone had to submit their questions through. And then after a week, we looked through them. He realized most of the questions he was spending so much time answering were low leverage decisions that didn't actually require him to be the person to make that decision. It also showed that close to like 90% of the questions everybody was asking were either repetitive questions, so he could create, SOPs, standard operating procedures, or ones he could just easily train somebody else to handle. So with this knowledge in hand, we move to the final question. Who can you put in place to handle these questions, to make these decisions? So he found a trusted employee who loved operations and promoted them. Their job was to handle most of these low leverage decisions and report to him. This alone freed up 3 hours every single day for him, which added up to 15 hours every week, or an entire month over the course of a year. So what did he do with all this extra time? Well, he decided to split that time between scaling his company, taking high leverage meetings, and playing guitar. So a couple takeaways from this real quick. Oftentimes we unintentionally create or become the bottlenecks in our businesses, which takes up all of our time and limits our business's ability to grow. Your job as an entrepreneur fundamentally is to focus on where you bring the most value to your business. At a certain point, this means removing responsibilities from your plate so that you can both remove yourself as the bottleneck for your company's growth and so that you can spend most of your time, energy, and attention where you bring the most value to your business. Yes, learning to identify bottlenecks and apply strategies to remove them is key. But another huge piece from a psychological perspective is learning to let go of control. Mindset is critical to succeeding in this industry because it's all too easy to become your worst enemy without even realizing it. Oftentimes, growth requires letting go. Also, real quick, yes, this entrepreneur freed up 15 hours every week, but more importantly, he freed up his mind by learning to strategically let go of low-value tasks, of time-consuming, low-value, low-leverage tasks, so that he could dedicate his time, energy, and attention to where he was most valuable for his company. That was the true unlock that coaching helped him achieve. The mental piece of entrepreneurship. What would you do if you could free up 40% of your time every single week? Well, I would love to help you. So if you're curious about how we could work together, I'll put some information down below. So check that out if you would like to work together for coaching. But I hope this video was helpful. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Until next time, take it easy.